Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? Hashtag Ways, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. I am Osayo Mesale. And see who decided to show up today. Diola Sulaiman. Hi Dee, how are you?
I'm good.
We are happy to have you back.
I'm happy
Praise
to
the
be
Lord.
on set.
Praise the Lord.
It's
Though.
good to be back on set.
Welcome back, welcome back. So tell us, how have you been?
Oh, well.
What has been happening? Has life been lifing?
Well, I'm
Lovely outfit, by the way.
alive. Thank you.
Is this Adire?
I don't know where it is, but yes,
It's patterned. Actually. Very
patterned.
lovely.
Thank you.
I like the yellow and
Thank
the gold.
you.
So yeah, tell us what has been happening. Why did you decide to abandon us?
No, it's just the pressures of life, and
What
then
are
work.
pressures of life?
Then, I took on a new role, so it's been quite challenging, adapting, and then, just trying to find the balance, but it's all good.
What's the new role about? Is it very far from your previous role?
No, not really exactly. I think the scope is just wider, and then it's a new industry that I'm just learning the ropes. So getting familiar with that, and because it's also a bit of a startup, so it's almost like there's just so much to do, and your work time schedule is crazy, so yeah, all of that, and it was just very demanding, so to say. But I miss being on Ways.
Yeah,
but
okay.
again, you guys are doing, you ladies,
We're surviving.
You've been doing lovely.
We will survive. We don't have a choice.
But of course,
that's the thing about live shows. Whether you feel like it, you don't feel like it,
have
the show has to
show
go
up.
on. But well, we're happy to have you back. Thank God for the new role. I'm hoping that things are stable now.
Yeah.
Interesting. We thank the Lord.
Thank you.
Good news. Today is NJ's birthday. And she turned a milestone, and she did not invite us for parties. All right. Me, I didn't even know. It was somebody that sent me post on Instagram that, did you know? I said, I didn't know.
Oh.
But a happy birthday to NJ.
Happy birthday,
I loved
girl.
her, the picture. It was really nice.
Beautiful, very unlike NJ.
Yeah, the dress was, the suit was really classy and
very,
nice.
very.
See, and the pressures of birthday, I don't know. God will help us. there's a lot going on. So this year, in fact, I thought I was alone until Sanzi did not even bother to take picture. My own, I mistakenly took picture, but the picture was not made for birthday. And Sanzi did not even bother to take. There's a lot of pressure going on.
Oh, absolutely, especially if it's a milestone age. You begin to ask yourself, what have you done?
What
have
are the
you
accomplishments and all of that?
And
absolutely.
Really,
I'm happy to be alive.
And healthy.
Yeah, because
that's the most important thing.
We were just talking about somebody that died at 39. I just looked the guy, fine guy, just like that.
Successful. Don't forget to add that.
So when you are, that's why every morning I wake up and I am grateful. So sad, honestly. And such a handsome. I know all the K-drama people now, they'll just be crying.
He's so, he's so handsome.
It's sad. 39. Such a young guy. All right, so before we get into conversations for today, please, if you're yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel is growing now. Thank you to all of you that have subscribed. Please keep sharing the links and share to other people to subscribe and follow us. Yeah, we have interesting content on our YouTube page, so please go there, binge watch. If Saturday is not interesting to you, just go on our page, go to different playlists and just binge watch. Thank you for watching. Remember to always like, share, and leave a comment so we know you're watching. Tell us at least where you're watching us from. Absolutely. So today we're having a conversation, of course, of the recent report that has raised eyebrows across Nigeria. According to the findings, a staggering 19.43 billion naira was spent on maintenance and operations of presidential air fleet from July 2023 to September 2024. I'm sure Jola will say, oh my gosh, I'm back to all of this.
Did you know?
Now, this revelation has sparked a heated debate about the cost of governance in Nigeria. And to this effect, here's what we found as today's quote. It says, what we are getting from this administration is opposite to our expectations. We thought we would have an administration that would be frugal in spending and very meticulous at implementing its budget. But what we are getting is an administration that has fallen in love with profligacy, that doesn't see anything wrong in living big amid a poverty-stricken nation. Wow. And this was from Debo Adediran. He's the executive chairman of the Anti-Corruption and Open Leadership. Sad, very sad, honestly speaking. So when we open our phone lines, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this conversation. And of course, we'll run off on a break now. When we come back from that break, we want to see what we found in today's news. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now, International Day. Today is World Kindness Day. It's celebrated annually on November 13th, established in 1998 by the World Kindness Movement. This day promotes kindness and compassion globally. The main objectives are to encourage acts of kindness in everyday life, highlight the positive impact of kindness on mental health and community well-being, and foster a culture of compassion across diverse communities. World Kindness Day emphasizes kindness as a vital human value, aiming to create a ripple effect where small actions lead to significant societal change. Now, to participate, individuals can perform simple acts of kindness such as helping a neighbor or giving compliments. Now, volunteering for local charities or organizations and spreading positivity through uplifting social media messages are also some great ways, to get involved on this day. Yeah, little acts of kindness.
There's never been a time that kindness is kindness
Needed.
speaks loud, because of course everybody's struggling, everybody's just holding themselves by by a thread. We're all hanging in there by a thread. So a very kind word, a smile, it's hard to do because when you think of all the things that's going on with you, you may not even be in the mental or emotional frame of mind, to even smile at a person. But I learned in recent weeks, really, because again, for some weeks, I was really, really under so much pressure, the traffic, the this, work and all that. And I realized that unconsciously, you are reactionary. Unconsciously, you don't want to, but you just realize that you're snapping at people. You're not patient. You're not as patient as you should be. You're not giving the people grace that was extended to you. Let me put it like that. And so it took someone a cleaner actually, to actually come to me and, she's just said, you know what? She would just keep smiling. And I'm wondering, girl, what's wrong with you? But the interesting thing is, because I know her peculiar situation, she's supposed to be one of the people that should not even smile. But this girl would come every day, she's smiling, she's laughing in your face, and you're wondering, what the hell is wrong with you, And she said, you know what? I mean, these things, they're bigger than me. There's nothing for me to do. I can't kill myself because I'll just drop dead. And, something just, I felt jolted, and I realized, just taking that time to just intentionally say kind word.
I like that word.
Yeah,
because in my lowest point in the past few months, I've had to say, Uwa, I know you're going through this, but reach out to someone, talk to someone. Not reach out to them to tell them what I'm going through. Just reach out and say, how are you doing?
Exactly.
Because it's not, because again, I've realized that sadly, when you are put in a place of, in a certain position of leadership, you don't have that liberty anymore to just say, I want to be in my feelings, I have to learn. It's not something that I'm used to. I have to learn to say, oh, I haven't heard from this person in a while. How are you doing? I hope you're okay. Absolutely. And all of that. It's not an easy thing to do, but those little things.
And that brings back to mind. I mean, you reaching out to me.
Yeah,
no, but
so it's not like I have everything figured out or I am happy where I am, but I just say no. At this point, concern.
Yeah.
So somehow it also helped me to move away from the things that was bothering me.
True.
But I'm grateful to God, honestly speaking, because where I am today, I mean, 2 weeks ago I was not there, so I'm happy.
There's always something to be
I'm
grateful
telling you,
for
I'm so
every
grateful.
day.
All right, so quickly, Diola, what did you find for us in the news?
Okay, so this one is interesting or shocking. I don't even know. It says Lagos State government has arrested 94 persons during a midnight operation on rail track squatters. This was done followed by complaints from citizens about illegal squatters, miscreants, and suspected criminal activities along rail track corridors. And then the Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources said a locally fabricated shotgun, several wraps of illicit substances suspected to be Indian hemp, charms, and a jackknife were recovered from the suspects. Of course, this was at the corridor of Penn Cinema under the bridge heading up to Fagba. Again, I mean, people want to feel safe. Sometimes you can't help it. You're coming back from work very late, or you have to go out, go hustle. You shouldn't have to deal with that pressure and deal with the pressure of wanting to be safe. So yes, if I find this move to be proactive. If the government is doing, you know, at least actually listening to the citizens to say that, okay, you know what, we don't want this thing, and they are doing. But again, you ask yourself, I mean, all these people that have just been whisked away, where are they taking them to? Where are they, you know, the society, what's happening? I mean, a lot of them are probably educated people, you know, who just found themselves in situations where they can't control, you know, homeless, hungry, you know. Nobody sets out to be a miscreant.
Absolutely.
You know, so again, it's to find the balance and then to just find a way to rehabilitate people, really. So.
All right, so Dasuki's dollar trial, prosecutors say that the Office of the National Security Advisor made 2 dozens transfer to the couple, totaling more than 100 billion naira, of which the couple wired 7.7 million to California in late June of 2024. Mimi Oshodin pleaded not guilty and was granted bail to the sum of, I think, 250 million. I'm just trying to put it out there. So bank documents that were reviewed by Premium Times indicate that the payments were made for consulting services. They put that in quote, and special ops, amongst others, in mid of 2014. Documents also show that the NSA's office wired this couple $12 million in a single transfer for the provision of counter-radicalization campaign. People should just go out and read more of this story, because this Dasuki case has been on for a while, and I just thought to put it out there. My only question is, how are people able to just continue to rob the system? Do you understand? Because is it that we do not have any form of structure when it comes to how finances are moved? Do you understand? The other time I saw a picture of somebody that is saying that he's sharing money. And I'm wondering, how is this even possible? With all the policies that you put in place, it's just interesting. So it's interesting that we're having the conversation around cost of governance. So maybe we'll be able to understand how these things happen and how we're able to just, you know, expend a lot of money on things that I would consider that are frivolous, right?
I'm not even sure that, you know, that is the problem. I think, like you rightly pointed out first, there is no it's like there is no structure. Everybody just wakes up and says, you know what, I'm just here to do, it's my turn. Let me just do what I need to do. It's not your business how I do what I need to do. Whatever mess I create, when I leave, you can start trying to clean the mess. And that's what happens with all this. You don't try people when they're in office, even in the face of seeing all this nonsense. You don't do it. It's like they have immunity.
Of course they do.
So,
it's like...
Of course. So they drag this case because, again, nobody is there to monitor. We monitor we're just having conversations about it. Nobody has really taken the step to say that, you know what, we want, you know, feasible actions. We want to see punishment. We want to see this. So, I mean...
We'll talk about it more. All right, so we'll take a break now. When we come back from that break, let's have a conversation around governance. Stay with us. Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges.
With the growing youth population and very little engagement.
That is a ticking time bomb.
We're blessed people with a diverse culture who have a lot to say.
And yes, we are talking.
It is important we drive conversations that informs, inspires, and influences thoughts and actions.
If we say there is beauty in diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture.
We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation.
As we are the hope for the future,
Yesterday's conversation shaped today.
What are you saying to shape your tomorrow?
We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you. Thanks for staying with us now. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration is under scrutiny for its high governance cost in Nigeria. A recent report, of course, as mentioned earlier, revealed that 19.43 billion was spent on maintaining the presidential air fleet from July 2023 to September 2024, highlighting excessive expenditures. Now, the administration has appointed, of course, about 48 ministers, the largest cabinet since Nigeria's return to democracy, which has raised concerns about spending. Now, controversial allocations include 14 billion for a new vice presidential lodge, 1.5 billion for vehicles of the office of the First Lady, 2.9 billion for replacing operational vehicles for the presidency, and over $100 million for a new presidential jet. Additionally, the 2024 budget proposal includes contentious items such as 319.28 billion for publicity and welfare expenses and 7.5 billion for foreign trips. Now, the government has defended these expenditures as necessary, but critics argue that they reflect misplaced priorities in light of course, Nigeria's economic challenges. So joining us is a petroleum economist and associate professor with the Department of Economics, Nile University of Nigeria in Abuja. He's a certified brain coach and leadership and personal development expert. He has trained hundreds of professionals and young people on leadership and personal developmental skills, as well as brain development skills to help them activate their super brains to think and learn faster and better. He's written books on leadership and personal development. He is an associate professor, as I mentioned earlier, in the person of Professor Ahmed Adamu. Thank you so much for joining us, Prof.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you hear me, Prof?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
I think it's very low.
The audio is not coming into the studio. All right, so okay, let's try you again, Prof. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay. I think it's our own audio. All right, so Prof. First of all, thank you for for agreeing to have this conversation with us. But I think Nigeria's issue is a bit tiring to have. Some days I'm very hyper. I will shout and shout and shout and shout, but the shouting is not solving any problem because our government, they still just do what they feel like doing, and and it's looking like there is no end in sight when it comes to excessive spending with our government. So help us break it down. First of all, is it possible for us to bring down the cost of governance with the current status quo of Nigeria's leadership structure? Is it possible?
Well, this is a very, very good question. If it is possible, yes and no. And I said no because if you look at the system that brings the politicians to power, it's highly expensive system. Because when people contest billions and billions of naira, they get contribution, they borrow money, and when they get to power, they will have to pay back those kind of supports. So when we run very expensive politics, and we live in a society where money is everything, then the answer is no. And the answer is also yes, because anything, no matter how bad it is, people can come together and change it. Even though changing that is going to be very difficult, because the people that will change it are the same people that benefit from the system. So more or less, the answer to your question, it is not easy to change this kind of expensive governance that we have in Nigeria. Because what you rightly said from your report about 19 billion naira spent on fueling or maintaining the air fleet for the president, that is not a good sign. Because at a time when we have high level of poverty, inflation, when the government removes subsidy, and the post-subsidy removal effect is still as fresh and wounding the economy severely. So this is time for sacrifice. This is not time for luxury. And this sacrifice must come from leaders, because leaders should not be asking followers to be patient and to make sacrifice for the country, because they have to demonstrate, they have to be the role models, they have to lead by example and show Nigerians this is time for sacrifice. This is not time for extravagance, because leadership is service, it's not self-serving. Because there were so many reports that indicate that the government spent majority of its spending serving itself. And these things come from having large number of officials and aides or assistants to those officials appointed, and everyone has to be staffed, and everyone wants to show that they are in government. And even society expects people in government to have the money and to do something for their people back. So there is cultural issue, there is also psychological issue that come from the leaders themselves, because leaders, they have this fear, or politicians rather, they have fear of poverty post their official tenure, because otherwise why would people spend this amount of money to just luxury and extravagance? Because in leadership, it's about sacrifice, it is responsibility. You are not in the position to serve yourself or to live luxurious life. What does it take for government officials to take commercial flights? What does it take for government officials to take an economic class? Because you are using public resources. And I always give this very perfect example of a great leader, someone who was using just a simple lamp for office work. And when he has to attend to personal matters, he will switch off this public lamp and turn on a private lamp that he owns, so that he can conserve public resources. So our leaders need to have this kind of sense of conservation and management for resources, because if you talk about 19 billion, with 19 billion, you can share around 10 million naira to around 2,000 Nigerians. Can get 10 million.
And
So
that can go really far, you know, that can go really far. But I would like to touch on a few things that you talked about. When you talked about why can't our politicians, why can't they utilize public facilities, right? Things like flights, you know, public flights and all of those. But the state of the things that we have currently in Nigeria, you know, they've kept it comatose so that, you know, they continue to have that excuse, right? Is there a way that we can incorporate a law that says that as long as you are in a public service, position, then there are certain things that that is not obtainable to do. So either you choose it, even if it is your personal income that you're using, you are not allowed to do certain things until you have left office. You know, I don't know if that will help in helping us reduce, because it is ridiculous for a president that says, be the wife that says, oh, my husband is very wealthy, we don't need your money, and we're just coming here to serve. They bought her a car for over ₦1 billion, right? And they've gotten a private jet of 100 million. I mean, do you want to tell me that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu before now did not have a private jet? what was the point of him coming into power? The whole assurance was the fact that Bodulon was known to be the home of a billionaire, right? So you are a billionaire, you don't need Nigeria's money to survive or anything. But it is almost like the opposite that we're seeing right now in power, renovating the vice presidential lodge. Some of these things are just completely ridiculous, and I can't even fathom it. If Nigeria was in a place where we were all prosperous, everybody was having a good time, and things like this are happening, nobody's going to raise an eyebrow, right? But we keep on having this type of things, and I'm wondering, how can we fight this legally? Because it seems like if we continue to just talk about it, there might not be any solution, right? These recurrent expenditures will continue to grow. Look at the president appointing 48 ministers. Where has that happened before the history of Nigeria? Before now, it has never happened. You are the one that is to some extent, I thought you knew the state of Nigeria, right? And you're the one that is now bringing in some of these excesses. So I'm trying to make it make sense.
Yeah, you see, to make sense out of this, you have to look at the motivation. Like I mentioned in one of my recent talks, I said, when we have to understand the mindset, the mentality of these exorbitant or extravagant leadership, we have to look at the mentality. One, I said, the reason why we have high cost of governance is the desire to show off, desire to acquire wealth, to acquire and show luxury, and to show that you are better than people. And then the psychological fear of poverty and lack of love and belief for the country. Otherwise, if you have love for the country, you cannot spend extravagantly on yourself, because more than 70% of government spending, it was spent on itself. And this normally, like I mentioned, is stemmed from our culture, because as individuals, we respect people with the money. We vote people that give us the money. Who is the most successful in our society is the person that has more money. And that is why the leaders we have who have resources that manage our resources, they always channel the resources toward themselves, so they continue to have that kind of level of influence. And that's why they can spend so much money, even during the election, to continue to perpetuate in those positions. I mean, if you look at the cost of election, a lot, people spending billions and billions of naira, and when they get to the position, of course, they'll have to recoup that spending. And so people have to borrow money, have to pay back. Some people have to assets, and they have to recoup that money. And that can only happen through high cost of governance, because most of these expenditures are not justified, are just gateway for corruption. And this monetary attraction is what lead to so many people to join politics. People are joining politics not just because they want to serve, but just because they want to have access to these resources, so that they can also amass these resources and also have this kind of respect. And so this monetary attraction, it cost us a lot. It deprived us of the good governance that we're talking about. If you look at what you said, the size of the governance, this is one of the biggest administration we've ever had. And it's coming to compensate people and politicians, because it's not about doing or solving every problem when you are in government. You don't have to create ministry for all issues. Like I mentioned, that if you have so many problems in Nigeria, you are not expected as a leader to solve all the problems. What is required of you is to find the most significant problems that we face and address them. If you can solve the major problems, by solving them, you are solving other problems. So solving one problem solves the other. So you don't have to have all the ministries for all the problems we have. Even if you have to have a, let's say, minister, you don't need to have a minister of state. So for me, it's extravagance. It's a wastage to have a minister on one aspect and have another minister called the minister of state. You don't need it. You already have a civil servant. You already have the permanent secretaries. You already have, sometimes you see them also adding special advisors. The same issue. So for me, we need to reduce and have a slim type of government. And this also should happen at local level, at state level.
Okay.
And if you look at, if you have to put it in context, Nigerian government spend on average about 3 trillion naira annually, only on personnel costs. And let's look at in the year 2022. The Nigerian government budgeted around 6.8 trillion for recurrent spending on personnel costs alone. And at the same year, the Nigerian government budgeted around 924 billion for education. So education sector gets less than 1 trillion, but the government got about 7 trillion for itself. So you can see the imbalance. Educational sector is supposed to be the sector that gets the most spending to improve quality of education, to enhance the economy, is getting the lower investment.
I think
that's why this country will not grow, because the resources are displaced.
Absolutely, definitely. We talked about that yesterday, because even the healthcare sector as well, you know, you are supposed to give a 15% budget allocation to the healthcare sector. We're not seeing it, and that's why our healthcare sector is just, you know, is just warped. Let me, Diola, come to you.
Okay, so I'm going to piggy off what the professor said when he mentioned about the cultural belief of Nigerians. And I think that we are at a point where we celebrate and then we honor wealth, privilege, as against service. And it speaks to how, or the caliber of people who actually go into politics and government. So for a lot of the way the Nigerian system works is people are there on account of somebody else, right? So there is that favor for favor system. So when now the thing for me is, are we truly justified as Nigerians to raise our eyebrows? Because again, I sit back and I say that, did we not allow this to happen? I think we allowed it to happen. We allowed it because we're like, listen, it's my person that is there.
Because tomorrow, if your person is not there, you too, you'll be expecting.
Exactly. So we don't hold them accountable. We decide to turn the blind eye. And I remember that there was a time that service was the holy grail in this country. So I want to ask the professor, at what point did it change? What was it? Was it some policy? What happened that moved us from that point where we were a service-oriented nation into a nation that became, you know what, is turn by turn. It is more about my ethnic person. It is about me just putting my
what
person.
I can get.
You understand? So maybe in order for us to solve this problem, we need to go back to the beginning, exactly, and understand what truly happened, and then we can move from there.
Prof, you want to come in?
Yeah, that's a very beautiful question, because asking ourselves, how did we get here? Because we have to go back to the drawing board. And for me, it depends on our presidential system, or rather democratic system we operate, which is the presidential system. You see, the presidential system is the winner takes it all. And we live in a country where we have high level of diversity, one of the most diverse countries in the world. And we now have an election system where even if you've won the election by just one vote, you become the winner. And the president becomes very powerful, make decisions and manage the resources on behalf of the country. And also they have a president who becomes like a dictator, who will buy the National Assembly and bring any law and decide and even appoint judiciary. And that's why we have excesses and so much power centered around one individual and around the central government. And this gives room for corruption and aggrandizement, and people securing resources toward themselves. That's why we are even complaining about a high cost of government. We're talking about 19 billion in less than a year on just flights. so for the president. So for me, what I believe will have been suitable for Nigeria is to change and restructure the country so that we bring resources and responsibilities closer to the people. Because what we have now, resources and responsibilities are centered around the central government. So if resources are closer to the people, when regional governments or states are given true independence and control of their resources, people will now put close eye to what happens to their resources, and they can hold leaders accountable. There will be better transparency, and leaders will not be blaming the central government. Central government will be less busy, will only be doing regulation, policy, and national relation. And that will reduce how much power is put at the center. So the question of who becomes president, it will be of less importance, because people will worry more and care more about who becomes the governor in their states, because that's where everything matters. For example, if we have resource control for the states, every state will now want to explore their comparative advantage. If it's agriculture, if it's mineral resources, if any kind of natural resource, be it oil and gas, tourism. So this will attract foreign direct investment to these states, and the resources remain within the state. You are not sending it out to the center. And these are your closest people. If you cheat them, if you mismanage the resources, you are cheating your people. And so people will have a sense of responsibility, and then we can create comparison and competition among states. So states will now be concerned about what can they do for their people. That kind of self-serving, I mean, that kind of sense of responsibility will come in play, because people are now more responsible for their community, because
become a lot more
productive.
Okay, so you know what? Let's go on a very short break. When we come back from that break, I want you to continue on this point, because interestingly, on Monday, we had somebody from Budget talk about the state of states, you know, in partnership with Enough is Enough. And I'll come back to some of the reports that was, you know, that was shared with us, so you can continue on this point about productivity. I think that is just in all honesty, that's the solution. We have to decentralize power. Okay, so we'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for staying with us. So if you just tuned in, we're having a conversation about the high cost of governance. To be precise, the recent report revealing, you know, some staggering amounts of money that was spent on so many things, 19.4 billion on the presidential fleet, you know, of course, between July 2023 and September. And we still have with us our guest, Associate Professor Ahmed Adamu, a petroleum economist and Associate Professor with the Department of Economics at Nile University in Abuja, and he's joined us virtually. Now, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join this conversation, send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-8663. You can also call our phone lines, the numbers to call are 07025007749 or 07014242420. Remember to turn off whatever device it is that you're watching us from, so we don't get a feedback when you do call. So, Professor, I want you to go back to Diola's question and how you were responding. And I love the fact that you're actually just hitting the nail on the head. It is whether we will be, whether this it's not even that. You know, the people that will make the law, they're already used to how they have feeding facts
absolutely
from this very choked system,
absolutely,
without even looking at the ultimate destruction it's bringing to the people. Now, from this report by Budget, it says that in Nigeria, combined revenue across Nigerian states rose by over 31%, reaching 8.66 trillion, a positive signal of growth, but also a call for more self-sustaining revenue practices. Of course, Lagos led the state. But let me read this part. It says, yet, 32 states out of 36 states still heavily rely on federal allocations for more than half of their income, emphasizing a critical need for states to strengthen their internally generated revenue. This is especially important given the economic volatility that is linked to fluctuating oil prices and exchange rates. So let me just leave it at that point, because from this report, it was said that if states begin to, right, when they say the state of state, the physical sustainability of Nigerian state, if state begins to look inward, you understand, maybe we might just have some breather. Because as it is now, so many states are not, imagine 32 out of 36 states. So meaning that we only have about four productive states in Nigeria. So how do we even succeed? Right? How do we succeed? You talked about how we are spending heavily on, of course, on recurrent expenditures. Civil service, right, is one of the biggest biggest culprit in this expenditure, recurrent expenditure. Most people are there. Some of them are not even workers. Some of them are relocated. They're still collecting salary. Like, it is just ridiculous. If it were your company, right? If Nigeria were your company, would you treat it that way? This is my question to all politicians. If it is your company and the salary is coming from your pocket, would you not take time to do your due diligence? So how do we get states to become a lot more productive instead of this cap in hand structure that they go to the federal government month on month?
Because you see, when you are being served, so you always wait and you do nothing. Because when you are hungry and there is no food around, even the food that you not ordinarily look for or you eat, you start looking for it. So scarcity is the father of invention. These states, they are sitting on resources, untapped. And these latent resources could be harnessed if we stop relying on the federal government. So what we are saying is, let us decentralize power and allow states to take the responsibility of healthcare, of education, and to some extent the security and employment of their people. But because of this extra responsibility, we have to give them control of resources. For example, in northern states, they can now enter into partnership with other countries to develop agricultural lands and produce these crops and products that are needed internationally and export it and get hard currency. And this hard currency that comes, foreign currency, foreign exchange, will now be retained by the state. The state can now build hospitals, can now build more roads, can now build more schools, and this enables development. But now, as we speak, we are constrained by law. There is what you call the exclusive list, and there is concurrent list. The exclusive list has given the federal government too much power and restricted the states from doing what they want to do. And that is why the states are still becoming more parasite, like we talk about 32% of them just doing nothing and cannot generate. If PAC will not send money this month, majority of the states will not be able to do salary. So this is very pathetic, and the central government wants anything that affects the federal government, affect the whole country. This is not healthy for the economy. So that's why we have to restructure the economy so that we can develop every part of the country, and everywhere we focus on their comparative advantage. Instead of just focusing on one sector, oil sector, if we decentralize power, then the country will have multiple sources of foreign exchange, and then you see competition in terms of growth, and then you can see partnership between states. And even the cost of government, high recurrent expenditure will be reduced, because you know that the resources are limited. Number of agencies will no longer be there. And this high pay for the officials will also reduce. Even the fraud we have in payroll will not be there. And we're talking about vehicles, the fleets in the convoy of these leaders will also be reduced, because if you do that, the people of your state are looking at you. They know that it's their resources, and you cannot do that because it's their limited resources, and then you don't have it that enough because you are looking for more. And even security votes, which is a major source of high cost of governance, will be reduced or eliminated entirely. Generally, corruption will go. And the current system we operate is very complex, and transparency becomes very difficult. Accountability is almost impossible. And that is why we are crying now, because the marginal cost of governance is higher than the marginal benefits. The additional benefit we get from the government is small compared to the costs of the governance. And that is all the only time when people will be able to sacrifice, when they know that the resources contained within their community or within their states. Because there is a correlation between how you are governed and how you develop. There is, if you have high good governance, then the tendency of you to develop is high. And there is also a negative relationship between cost of governance and good governance. If you have high cost of governance, you will not have good governance. If you have low cost of governance, you will have high good governance. Because we have so many countries that are far richer than Nigeria, but they have better governance than Nigeria. So unless we restructure and go back to the system where people elect their local leader who manage their resources and they have less concern about central government, we will continue to have this kind of extravagance, because now the leader takes it all and everyone is looking at it like they are torn. And once your turn comes, you try to take the best out of it. And
Jella wants to put in a word here. Speaking to that restructuring, she has a question for you.
Okay, so I hear you when you say that the restructuring is the way to go, you know, decentralizing the federal government is the way to go. I hear you loud and clear. But I feel, and I think, that if that happens, I mean, we've seen governors do atrocities in this country. I just feel that it's just going to be the same thing. It's going to be a replication of what is happening at the federal level, just at a smaller scale. That's what I believe. It's going to be the same bogus system, the same extravagant system, because, again, we come back to the fact that are the people truly wired to have good governance? That's the question. We may shout that that is what we want, but do we truly want it? We ask ourselves, we say that people should get involved in politics, in governance, you know what happens at your local level. Are people truly interested? Because again, okay, the governor becomes the person with the most power, because at that level, he probably has state policing, he has all of that. So imagine that you have a crazy person. Exactly. Who would handle the checks and balances? The people? Can we trust the people?
Professor, in addition to what Diola said, the people that would sign this decentralization of power, they are the people at the National Assembly.
They would never agree to it.
You think these people... we don't... You know when they talk, say we don't enter one chance. They're one chance to enter for this.
They're never going to agree.
But help us understand. I mean, raising Diola's concern, and do you see any willingness for them to want to change status quo? Because I think they are just benefiting and they are enjoying this. I don't see any sign that they would want to do things differently, because they have benefited from the system as it is.
Absolutely.
And some of them, they've been in power for years.
Many years.
Over 30 years, 40 years, they've been there. So how do you expect them to want to change what has made them who they are today?
Exactly.
Yeah. It just takes a great leader, a passionate leader, to bring this change, and that has the will and understanding of the benefit of this restructuring. Even the previous election, we have I can remember two candidates that shared this belief that Nigeria needs this kind of restructuring. And we have a president that strongly believes in this, so it's a matter of transition. So we transition until we have a stronger state, then we relinquish all the powers to them. So like we'll be nurturing the states gradually. The state that needs to be built out or needs startup grants to develop their industry will be supported. Because if we can have stronger states that will be sending contributory money to the federal government, it becomes less responsibility for the federal government to manage its little role of just doing policy and an oversight to make sure that there is standardization. And she also talked about the people. Actually, the problem, I agree with her, is the people, because like I mentioned in my speech, I said, there are no bad leaders or good leaders. There are only informed and uninformed electorates. Because if you see a good leader, that good leader must have been elected by the electorate. If you see a bad leader, he must have been elected by the electorate. But how educated are the electorates? in choosing or deciding the leader. And if the leader is not doing well, how informed are the electorates to now speak up, express their dissatisfaction, and even bring change to that kind of leadership? And you should talk about the governors having excessive powers and abusing the power when it's so much centralized. So you see, at the local level, even if you have corrupt governors, you can easily see the benefit of that, because everything is centered around the state. So if you have a bad governor, the state will feel it immediately, and people will start pointing fingers, and that this leader will not blame anybody. And even the current system we're talking about, we are complaining about corruption. And even if you go to the state resource control, yes, we can have corruption, because either way, we are Nigerians. We are not changing the people. We are still the same people. This is in our norm or in our culture, unless we change that. But since we can't change it, which one is the best option? The best option, despite the corruption tendency, is having the resources controlled by the state.
By the state.
Because when there is, even if you do corruption within your state, even if you have to share the money, you are sharing it to your siblings, to your friends. These are people that are within your state. So the money is likely to be circulating in one state. And then if you are not performing because of that corruption, the state will feel it, and then you can compare your performance with another state. Because if another state is doing well and you're not doing well, that's a big sign. And this is your community, this is your legacy, and if you are protecting your name, and you still come back and live in that state. If you are not performing, then what kind of service are you providing, or the service are you doing to your community? So for me, still, despite its flaws, like I said, no system is perfect, but this one will have been much better because resources will be developed.
I want to hear your opinion on something. Just one quick question before we let you go. Because you talked about the electorate. So do you think that the electorate were not informed in the 2023 general elections? Do you think that it was the result or the final result that we have for that presidential election is what the electorate voted? It's just a question. I want to hear your thoughts on your review, because when you are talking about electorate, some of us we stayed out till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. In fact, on a particular polling unit, I stayed till 6 a.m. the next day trying to make sure that my vote was counted and registered, right, in the IREV. So I just want to hear your thoughts, because everybody is quick to say electorate. Electorate went out, electorate voted. Do you think that the result of this 2023 general election was the actual, what's it called, the choices of these electorates?
Well, I can predict who was your candidate by virtue of your because I know different types of voters. I know voters who stay that long, voted that vote. So I don't have to reveal your secret. So just trust me, I know who you voted for. But anyway, that's a very good question too. You see, it's not just about the right voting, but what about the ones that are not informed, that are the majority, or they may not necessarily form the majority, but their votes can spoil or undo the vote of those that are informed. So I'm not saying people like you are not informed, because for people like you who voted for the
oh wow,
you must have a reasoning. You must have a valid reason why you are choosing that person, and that's more an informed decision. But
well, Professor, you are a professor. You've dodged my question. It's okay.
I'm not. I have.
Unfortunately, we ran out of time, and I think your network is acting up. But thank you so much, Professor. Let me quickly read a message, then Jola, you take the other one. Good evening, my dear beautiful sisters, of whatever you're saying. It says, I've been saying this, I will not stop saying it. The government is so wicked, heartless, and insensitive. They are only there to enjoy themselves and have fun, cleaning and busy emptying our treasury, and they do not see anything wrong in it. Why won't we be broke when we are busy getting ourselves involved in rituals and riotous, and wasteful spending. If the First Lady says that they are not interested in Nigeria's money, that they are comfortable, then where do they get the millions, billions, and trillions they are spending? This spending is an example of misplaced priorities. Your guest made mention of them not interested in serving us, but interested in wealth and resources of Nigeria. That I agree. Our national grid keeps collapsing. Our healthcare is nothing to write home about, and yet nothing is done about it. My dear beautiful sister D, nice to have you back. I really miss you a lot. Happy birthday to my dear beautiful sister Nwajaga. Many more years of sound health is yours in Jesus' name. Thank you so much, Daniel Ilo, always regular fan. D, you take the last question.
This one says clearly all this government is about is to take and keep taking without an iota of concern for its citizens staying afloat. Nigerians are resilient, but there is only so much they can take. I agree, states must rise to the occasion. Some governors are already doing that, and plenty others must take cue. Are they ready? Sorry to say, no, they aren't. This is from Grace, and I agree.
I agree. Well, thank you so much, Professor Adamu. I'm sure we'll definitely love to have you back again for some other time. But thank you for your time this evening. We really had a great conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. All right, thank you so much, D.
Thank you so much.
Don't be a stranger.
Or try not to be.
So thank you guys for watching. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, that Official Upgrade TV. Remember, if you missed our quote, here it is again. What we are getting from this administration is opposite to our expectation. We thought we would have an administration that would be frugal in spending and very meticulous at implementing its budget. But what we're getting is an administration that has fallen in love, how do they pronounce this word? Profligacy, that doesn't see anything wrong in living big amidst a poverty-stricken nation. That is the part that upsets me. People are hungry, people are starving, people are dying of hunger, and you are just busy flaunting this word. It's the height of insensitivity. But hey, we will keep on saying what we have to say. We'll see you guys tomorrow.